the Red State Horror. The title of the story is The Night They All Dreamed the Same Dream. In Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, every family. Same nightmare, same night, every year since 1953. This year, someone finally recorded what happens when the dream starts. Every family in Dulac, Louisiana has the same nightmare, same night, every year. October 17th, same dream. Every single person, adults, children, newborns. It has happened every year since 1953. Nobody talks about it. Nobody leaves. Nobody knows why. This year, a sleep researcher named Dr. Priya Okafor set up cameras in 14 homes. On the night of October 17th, what those cameras captured has not been explained by anyone, anywhere. Before this story starts, I need you to do something. Phone down, brightness low, headphones in. Here's why this one specifically needs that. We are going to talk about dreams tonight. And the strangest thing about dreams is that they work on you even when you're awake. They get into the part of your brain that processes sound and image before your rational mind can stop them. So close your eyes when I describe the dream. Just for that part. Let it find you the way it finds them. Every October 17th. Without fail, since 1953, here we divided the story into 8 simple parts. Ready? Let's go. Welcome to Red State Horror. I find the stories that nobody else is telling. The ones from the bayous and the back roads and the small towns that the rest of the country drives past without slowing down. The ones that have been happening for decades, while everyone pretends they're not. Some of those stories have answers. I give you the answers. Some of them don't. I sit with you in the not knowing. This one has an answer. And the answer is the most disturbing thing I have ever shared on this channel. Stay with me. Here we go. Chapter 1. The Town in the Water. Dulac, Louisiana sits in Terrebonne Parish, about 30 miles south of Houma, on a narrow finger of land between 2 bayous. The word town is generous. It's more a community strung along Louisiana Highway 315, a collection of homes and fishing camps and a convenience store, and a Catholic church that has been there since 1887. The population is around 1,200, though that number gets smaller every decade as the Gulf of Mexico slowly claims the land. The water is everywhere in Dulac. Not metaphorically, literally. The bayous on either side of the highway are sometimes 100 feet wide, sometimes 50 yards. The land between them is low and flat and wet and beautiful in a way that feels precarious, like beauty that knows it's temporary. The marsh grass runs to the horizon. Herons stand in the shallows. At night, the water reflects the sky so perfectly that it becomes disorienting. You can't tell where the land ends and everything else begins. Most of the families in Dulac have been there for multiple generations. Cajun families, many of them with roots going back to the 1700s. Vietnamese families who came after the fall of Saigon found that the fishing culture here matched what they'd left behind. Native families, Houma Nation, for whom this land goes back further than any European record. They are not the same in culture, in language, in religion, in anything except this. Every October 17th, they have the same dream. And they wake up, and they don't talk about it. Not to their neighbors, not to their children, though the children have the dream too, and never speak of it either. Not to reporters or researchers or curious strangers who've heard the rumors and come down Highway 315 to ask questions. Not talking about it is the one thing that unites this community of people who share almost nothing else. The not talking has its own name in Dulac. The older residents call it la chose silencieuse. The silent thing, not the dream itself, the silence around it. The agreement, never spoken and never broken, that some things stay in Dulac. Dr. Priya Okafor broke that agreement, not intentionally. Not at first. She just wanted to study sleep patterns in isolated coastal communities. Dr. Priya Okafor is 38 years old. She is a sleep researcher at Tulane University's Neuroscience Department in New Orleans. She has a PhD in cognitive neuroscience and has published 14 peer-reviewed papers on collective memory, shared psychological experience, and the neuroscience of recurring trauma response. She is also, as she told me when we spoke, the most skeptical person I know. She said this with a kind of exhausted pride. The pride of someone who has spent their career defending rigorous science against sensationalism and is tired but not sorry about it. She had heard about Dulac the way most researchers hear about things like this, through a graduate student's offhand comment at a departmental mixer in the spring of 2023. The student, a young man from Houma named Dev Tran, whose grandmother lived in Dulac, mentioned it almost as an aside. "There's this thing in the town my grandma lives in," he said. "Every year, on the same night, everybody has the same bad dream. Has been going on since before she was born. She doesn't talk about it, but I know it happens because her whole personality changes in October. Priya Okafor set down her drink. "Tell me everything," she said. Subscribe to Red State Horror before you go any further. This story has a full resolution at the end. Every question answered, nothing held back. But you need to be subscribed so you're here when the next one drops. Hit subscribe, the bell. Do it now. Chapter 2. What They Dream. I want to describe the dream to you, and I want to ask you to do the thing I asked at the beginning. Close your eyes if you can. Let it come through sound. The dream is the same for everyone. Young, old, male, female, Cajun, Vietnamese, Huma, Catholic, Buddhist, atheist. Every person who sleeps in Dulac on the night of October 17th has this dream. Every year. It has been described to researchers, to Priya, to her graduate student Dev, to me, in slightly different words by different people. But the core of it never changes. This is the dream. You are standing at the edge of the water. It is night. The bayou is in front of you. The marsh grass on either side is very still. There is something in the water. You cannot see what it is. You cannot see its shape or its size. You can only see that the water is moving, in a way that water does not move on its own. Something is coming towards you, slowly, without hurry. You want to run. You cannot run. Not because you are paralyzed, because you understand in the way you understand things in dreams. That running would be wrong. That running would be the mistake. So you stand. The thing in the water gets closer. You still cannot see it, but now you can hear it. It is saying something, in a language you do not know, but you understand every word. It is saying your name, not your first name, not a name anyone has ever called you. Your real name, the one you did not know you had until this moment, and then it reaches the bank. And you wake up, every person who has had this dream, and in Dulac, that is every person who has ever slept there on the night of October 17th, describes waking from it the same way. Not screaming, not gasping. Quietly, completely, like a switch being thrown. They wake up at the same time. Not approximately. Exactly. Every year, every household, the alarm clocks, the phones, and the timestamps on security cameras all show the same moment, 3:17 a.m. Nobody sets an alarm for 3:17 a.m. Nobody needs to. Dev Tran's grandmother, a woman named Lon Tran who had lived in Dulac since 1979, described it to Priya Okafor in Vietnamese, which Dev translated. She said, "We wake up, and the whole town is awake. You can feel it, like the whole place breathes in at the same time. And then it's quiet again. And we don't talk about it. We just go back to sleep." "Have you ever talked about it?" Priya asked. "With anyone? In 44 years?" Mrs. Tran looked at her grandson's colleague with the particular patience of a woman who has been asked questions she considers obvious for a very long time. "There is nothing to talk about," she said. "It is the dream. It happens. It goes. We sleep. Does it frighten you?" Priya asked. Mrs. Tran was quiet for a moment. "The first year," she said. "The first year, I was afraid. I cried. I thought I was losing my mind." She paused. "Then the next year it happened again. And the year after. And after 44 years," she shrugged. "You cannot be afraid of something forever. At some point, it is just part of October. Every person who has ever spent the night of October 17th in Dulac has had this dream. Visitors, researchers, state officials, every single one. The boundary of the dream is the boundary of the town. That last detail, the boundary, is the one that made Priya Okafor's hands shake when Dev first told her about it. The dream does not follow people when they leave. A Dulac resident who spends October 17th in New Orleans sleeps normally. But a visitor from New York who happens to be in Dulac that night, staying with family, passing through on a fishing trip, has the dream. Every time. You don't bring the dream with you, and the dream doesn't come to you. The dream happens in Dulac. To whoever is in Dulac. On October 17th, it is, as Priya told me with the careful precision of a scientist describing something that has broken her entire professional framework, geographically localized mass on-eric synchronization with no known neurological or environmental mechanism. In plain English, a whole town has the same dream at the same time, in the same place, every year, and nobody knows why. Hit like right now. We haven't even gotten to the cameras yet. This story is going to change the way you think about what the mind is capable of. Tap like. It helps this reach people who need to hear it. Chapter 3. The Study. It took Priya Okafor 4 months to get anyone in Dulac to agree to her study. Not because they were suspicious of her. They were perfectly friendly, offering her coffee, asking about her research, and giving her the warm and genuine hospitality that Dulac people are known for. But every time she asked about the dream, every time she started to explain what she wanted to document, the conversation would shift. Gently but completely, like water flowing around a stone. She is a patient woman. She came back 5 times between March and July of 2023. She ate at the same lunch counter each time. She learned people's names. She brought Dev Tran's grandmother flowers on her birthday. And eventually, slowly, one by one, 14 families said yes. The study protocol was straightforward. Priya's team would install non-invasive sleep monitoring equipment, accelerometers, pulse oximeters, and standard security cameras in the bedrooms of consenting households. The cameras would run throughout the night of October 17th. Participants would fill out a dream journal in the morning. No leading questions. No prior description of what others had reported. Just, what did you dream? She had 14 houses, 14 families, 41 individuals ranging from a 3-month-old infant to an 87-year-old great-grandmother. She set up the equipment on October 15th and 16th. On the evening of October 17th, she and her team, Dev Tran and 2 other graduate students, drove to the community center on Highway 315 and waited. They did not sleep. That was the plan. Researchers stay awake. Participants sleep. That was the plan. At 11:22 p.m., Dev Tran fell asleep in his chair. He had not intended to. He had drunk 2 cups of coffee. He was 26 years old and not given to dozing off. He simply went. Mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-cup. His head dropped, and he was gone. At 11:31 p.m., a graduate student named Keisha Morrow fell asleep. At 11:44 p.m., the 3rd student, a young man named Carlos Reyes, fell asleep. Priya was the last one awake. She watched all 3 of her graduate students go under in the space of 22 minutes. And she felt, she told me, the most specific fear I have ever experienced in my professional life. Not fear of something external, fear of her own mind. The recognition that something was happening that she did not understand, and that it was happening to her colleagues, and that she might be next. She stood up. She walked to the sink and ran cold water over her wrists. She called her husband in New Orleans. She talked to him for 9 minutes. She remembers checking the time and remembers the specific effort of keeping her voice steady. She hung up. She sat back down. At 12:08 a.m. on October 18th, Dr. Priya Okafor fell asleep. She woke up at 3:17 a.m. Exactly. All 4 of them woke up at 3:17 a.m. in the community center. In chairs, having driven from New Orleans that same day. Dev Tran looked at her across the folding table and said very quietly, "I had it, didn't I?" It was not a question. She said, "Tell me." He described the dream, the water, the thing is approaching, his name, his real name, the one he hadn't known he had. It was identical to everything his grandmother had described. Priya looked at the monitors, showing the feeds from 14 houses. In every house, every person was awake. Every clock read 3:17. I am a scientist. I do not believe in the supernatural. I believe in mechanisms, causes that produce effects, effects that can be measured, replicated, and understood. What happened in Dulac on the night of October 17th, 2023, had a mechanism. Finding it nearly destroyed me. Chapter 4. What the cameras saw. This is the chapter I've been both eager and afraid to write. Because what the cameras captured in those 14 houses on the night of October 17th is documented. It is on video. It has been reviewed by Priya's team, by 2 independent sleep researchers she brought in, and by a neurologist at LSU Medical Center whose specific reaction when she saw the footage was to close her laptop and say, I am quoting directly, "I need a minute." Let me tell you what they saw. The cameras showed the participants going to sleep normally. Lights out at various times between 9 p.m. and midnight. People are reading, checking phones, and doing the ordinary routines of ordinary households, going to bed on an October Thursday night. Sleep came normally, breathing slowed. Bodies settled. And then, at 11:22 p.m., the exact moment Dev Tran fell asleep in the community center, something changed. In all 14 houses simultaneously, every sleeping person changed position. Not tossing and turning. Not the normal shifts of sleep. Every person, adults, children, and the 3-month-old infant, rotated to face the same direction. South. Toward the bayou. Toward the water. In the same 30-second window. 14 houses. 41 people. All facing south. All at 11:22 p.m. They held that position, still breathing, deeply asleep, for the next 4 hours. That was the first thing. The second thing was the voices. At 2:44 a.m., 33 minutes before the 3:17 wake-up, the microphones in 6 of the 14 houses picked up sound. Not from the participants. From outside. The same sound in all 6 houses. A low murmur, rhythmic, patterned, coming from the direction of the bayou. Not loud, not alarming, but present on the audio in a consistent frequency across all 6 recording locations, which were spread across a half-mile stretch of Highway 315. The sound analysis, conducted by an acoustic specialist, Priya, brought in from the University of New Orleans, identified it as structured vocalization, likely human or human-adjacent in origin, with a pattern consistent with repeated phonemic sequences but not matching any documented language. Something outside, in the direction of the bayou, was making a sound that was like language, but wasn't language. For 33 minutes, in the same locations where the cameras recorded 41 people sleeping, all facing south, all dreaming the same dream, and then at 3:17 a.m. the sound stopped. Every person woke up. Every clock, every phone, every camera timestamp read 3:17. And then silence. And in the morning, nobody talked about it. The third thing, the one that made the LSU neurologist close her laptop, was what the accelerometers showed. Sleep accelerometers measure body movement. Every small shift, every breath, every pulse. Priya's team had them on 37 of the 41 participants. The 4 youngest children had been exempted for comfort. The data from the 37 devices showed something that, in Priya's words, should not be possible. Every device recorded identical movement signatures, not similar. Identical. Down to the millisecond. Down to the micro vibration. 37 people in 14 different houses, sleeping in 14 different beds, showed movement patterns so synchronized that when the data was overlaid on a graph, the lines were indistinguishable from each other. As if they were one body. As if 37 people were breathing together, turning together, dreaming together with the physical synchronicity of a single organism. The probability of this occurring by chance, Priya told me, is so small that I cannot express it in a way that makes intuitive sense. I'll tell you the number. The number is 10 to the negative 43rd power. That is not a small probability. That is not a very small probability. That is a probability that, for all practical purposes, is 0. It did not happen by chance. Something caused it. Finding out what caused it is where the story gets dark. Share this right now. Text it to someone. Post it. This is the story I have been building toward for months, and I need it to reach as many people as possible. The answer, what actually causes this, is coming in the next chapter. Share it before you get there. Chapter 5. Going back to 1953. Priya spent November and December of 2023 in New Orleans analyzing data and losing sleep. Not because of the dream. She only had it once, on October 17th, and it did not recur when she was back in the city, but because of everything she had documented and could not explain. She told me she would wake up at 3 in the morning for weeks afterward and lie in the dark and think about 37 accelerometers showing identical readings. About the sound from the bayou. About DevTran saying I had it. Didn't I? In the voice of someone who had just understood something they could never ununderstand. In January 2024, she stopped analyzing what she had and started asking a different question. Note, what is the dream? But when did it start? And why 1953? The year 1953 is not arbitrary. Every longtime Dulac resident who has spoken about the dream, and there are not many, but there are some, mostly elderly people who have decided that some truths are too heavy to die with, names 1953 as the first year. Not 1952, not 1954, 1953. Something happened in 1953. Priya found out what it was through a combination of sources: National Archives records, Louisiana State University's historical collection, a box of documents from the Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Court's office that had never been digitized, and a conversation with an 83-year-old Huma elder named Joseph Verdun, who lives 2 miles from the Highway 315 Community Center, and who, when Priya explained what she'd recorded on October 17th, sat quietly for a very long time and then said, "I knew someone would come asking eventually. I just didn't think it would take 70 years." In the summer of 1953, a petrochemical company, one of a dozen that had been moving into the Louisiana coastal marshes in the post-war industrial boom, began drilling operations approximately 4 miles south of Dulac in the open marsh. The company was called Meridian Chemical and Extraction. It no longer exists under that name. It was absorbed into a larger conglomerate in 1971, and that conglomerate was itself absorbed in 1989. And the current corporate entity that holds the liability for what Meridian did in the summer of 1953 is a subsidiary of a holding company registered in Delaware. Meridian was drilling for natural gas. The operation involved deep bore drilling through multiple limestone aquifer layers into the methane-bearing strata below. This was standard practice at the time. What was not standard, what was, in fact, specifically prohibited by the Army Corps of Engineers permits the company had obtained, was what they did when they hit an unexpected pressurized void at a depth of approximately 4,000 feet. The void was large, larger than their instruments had predicted. And it was already occupied. Occupied by what? I asked Priya. That's the question, she said. That's the question that took me 3 months to find an answer to. Meridian Extraction Corp. Internal Incident Log, July 14, 1953. Bore site, TCBX7, approximately 4.2 miles SSW of the Dulac Community Center. Depth at incident, 4,180 feet. At 0340 hours, the drill string encountered a pressurized void of unexpected dimensions. Preliminary sonar mapping suggests a cavity diameter of approximately 200 to 400 feet. The cavity appears to predate geological formation by a significant margin, an estimate of 8,000 to 12,000 years. The presence of organic material at depth confirms prior biology. Occupation. Material samples retrieved. The nature of organic material requires specialist evaluation, not consistent with standard petrochemical biological signatures. Primary concern. Cavity walls appear to contain crystalline structures of unknown composition, emitting a measurable, low-frequency acoustic signal. Signal range, 0.1 to 0.4 Hz. Amplitude, significant. Crew reports, headaches, disorientation, and 1 case of brief loss of consciousness. All symptomatic crew have been rotated to the surface. Dr. Haskins called from Baton Rouge. Recommendation, seal the bore. Do not disturb the cavity further. Do not disclose to regulatory bodies pending legal review. Signed, Operations Manager R. Fossey. Classification, internal only, not for distribution. Priya found this document in the undigitized Terrebonne Parish archive box. It had been filed with a collection of permit applications and geological surveys from the 1950s, apparently by accident or by design, by someone who had wanted it on record somewhere even if nobody was supposed to find it. It took her 20 minutes of sitting on the floor of the archive reading room to process what she was reading. The acoustic signal, she told me, 0.1 to 0.4 Hz. That's infrasound, sound below the range of human hearing. And the thing about infrasound, the thing that's documented, that's in the peer-reviewed literature, that's not fringe science, is that certain infrasound frequencies cause specific neurological effects. Disorientation, visual disturbances, irrational fear. At specific frequencies, prolonged exposure to infrasound has been associated with altered dream states. Sleep synchronization. In laboratory conditions, infrasound at 0.3 Hz has been shown to induce shared visual imagery in adjacent subjects. She looked at me across the table in her office. There is a cavity 4 miles south of Dulac that has been emitting infrasound continuously since 1953 when Meridian's drill bit broke into it, she said. At 0.3 Hz, exactly the frequency associated with shared dream states. The cavity has been there for 8 to 12,000 years. The infrasound has been there for 8 to 12,000 years. Meridian's drill opened it. And every October 17th, the date the bore site was sealed in 1953, the date the pressure change in the cavity would have peaked as the seal settled, the infrasound spikes. For one night. And everyone in Dulac dreams the same dream, I said. Everyone in Dulac, she said, is simultaneously exposed to the same infrasound frequency for 1 night per year. And their sleeping brains respond the same way sleeping brains respond to 0.3 Hz infrasound under laboratory conditions. They generate shared imagery. The dream is real, I said. The dream is a neurological response to a geophysical signal, she said. Whether that's real depends on your definition of real. She paused. But here's the thing, she said. Here's what I still can't explain. The infrasound explains the shared dream. It explains the synchronization. It explains the 317 wake-up. That's when the frequency peaks and drops. It explains the body orientation. Infrasound at that frequency causes a specific vestibular response that rotates sleeping subjects toward the signal source. It explains everything, I said. Almost, she said quietly. It explains almost everything. What doesn't it explain? She was quiet for a long moment. The names, she said. Subscribe to Red State Horror. We are not done. The names are the part that breaks everything open. Subscribe. Turn on the bell. Chapter 6. The Names. In the dream, something in the water says your name. Not your first name. Your real name, the one you didn't know you had. Every person who has had the dream reports this. Every single one. Without exception. A name, heard clearly, understood completely, that feels more essentially theirs than anything they've ever been called. Dev Tran described it as, "The name I was before I was Dev. He couldn't tell me what it was." People can't reproduce the names after waking, can't write them down or say them out loud. They just know with absolute certainty that they heard it, and that it was theirs. Infrasound at 0.3 Hz does not explain this. And this is where the story stopped being science and started being something I don't have a category for. Priya Okafor spent 3 months after the study in contact with Joseph Verdeen, the 83-year-old Huma elder. He was patient with her questions. More patient than she deserved, she said. She kept circling back to the names, and he kept giving her the same answer, and she kept not quite understanding it. The 4th time she asked, he changed his approach. "You want a scientific explanation for the names," he said. "Yes," she said. "There isn't one," he said. "Not because the names aren't real. Because science doesn't have the vocabulary for what the names are. Then what vocabulary does?" He thought about it. "The Huma," he said, "have known about the cavity for a very long time. Long before Meridian, long before Europeans. What Meridian called an unexplained pressurized void, we called something different. We called it, and I'm translating imperfectly, the old mouth, the place where the oldest things speak." "The oldest things," Priya repeated. "The land is old," he said. 8, 10, 12,000 years. That's what your geological instruments say. I won't argue with the instruments. What I will tell you is that the Huma understanding of this cavity is that it is the preserved breath of something that was here, before the marsh, before the bayou, before the water as we know it. It has been speaking since before anyone was alive to hear it, and that on one night of the year, when its voice is loudest, it reaches into the sleeping minds of everyone within its range, and it gives them something. "The name," Priya said. "Not a name it gives you," he said. "A name it remembers. The name your particular pattern of consciousness has had since before you were born. The oldest living things have very long memories, and very patient voices." Priya Okafor sat with that for a long moment. "I can't publish that," she said. "No," Joseph Verdeen agreed. "You can't. But you believe it." He looked at her with the patience of someone who has been waiting for the right question for a very long time. "I have had the dream," he said, "every October 17th since 1953. I was 13 years old the first time. I am 83 now, 70 years of the same dream, 70 years of hearing my name, my real name, spoken from the water." He paused. "Yes, I believe it. 70 years of the same dream, 70 years of hearing my name spoken from the water. You ask me if I believe it. I ask you, what would it take for you to stop believing something you have heard 70 times? Chapter 7. What Priya published. What she didn't. Priya Okafor submitted her paper to the Journal of Sleep Research in March 2024. It was accepted in June. It publishes this fall under the title Geophysical Infrasound and Mass Oniric Synchronization, a case study in coastal Louisiana. The paper documents everything: the 14 houses, the 41 participants, the accelerometer data, the camera footage, the acoustic analysis of the 2:44 a.m. sound, the infrasound readings from the drill site area, and the Meridian incident log from 1953. It is, she told me, the most well-documented case of collective synchronous dreaming in the scientific literature. Single quote, the paper does not mention the names. I asked her why. She was quiet for a long time. "Because the names can't be verified," she said finally. "I can't put something in a peer-reviewed paper that I cannot measure, reproduce, and verify. That's not how science works. And it shouldn't be." "But you believe them," I said. "The names." Another long pause. "I believe," she said carefully, "that every person in my study reported having an experience, a specific, named, deeply felt experience that cannot be explained by the infrasound mechanism alone. The infrasound explains the shared imagery. It explains the synchronization. It does not explain why the shared imagery specifically includes the experience of being named by something that knows you." "And?" I said, because there was clearly an and. She looked at me for a moment. "I had the dream," she said, "on October 17th, 2023, in a folding chair in a community center in Dulac, Louisiana. I had the dream. I was at the water. Something was coming, and it said my name." "Your name, my name," she said. "Not Priya, not Dr. Okafor. Something else, something I've never heard before, and can't reproduce now. But I knew it was mine. I knew it the way you know the smell of your own house. Immediately, completely, without needing to think about it. She was quiet for a moment. I am a scientist, she said. I believe in mechanisms. I believe in evidence. I believe in the infrasound, and the geological data, and the accelerometers and every number in that paper. And, I said again, and I also believe, she said quietly, that something very old, in a cavity 4 miles south of Dulac, Louisiana, has been remembering names for a very long time, and that one night a year, when its voice is strong enough, it speaks them. She looked out her office window at the New Orleans skyline. I don't know what to do with that, she said. So I'm going to keep being a scientist, and I'm going to keep knowing my name, and I'm going to let those two things exist in the same brain and see what happens. The people of Dulac know about Priya's paper. Dev Tran told his grandmother. Word spread the way word spreads in a community of 1,200 people, where everyone knows everyone. Their reaction, he told me, was interesting. They were not surprised by the infrasound explanation. They were not offended by it. They did not feel that science had diminished something sacred. Most of them, Dev said, reacted with the quiet interest of people who had always known there was a reason, had always felt that the dream had a source, a mechanism, a thing beneath it, and were mildly satisfied to have that confirmed. My grandmother said, Dev told me, good, now they know how. They still don't know what. The what, I said. What the dream actually is, Dev said. The infrasound explains how 41 people have the same dream at the same time. It doesn't explain what they're dreaming. What's in the water? What's coming toward them? What it knows? I thought about that. Does it matter? I asked. If the mechanism is infrasound, does it matter what the dream's content is? Dev looked at me for a moment. My grandmother has heard her name spoken from the water for 44 years, he said. Every October 17th, for 44 years, something has known her real name and spoken it in a language she's never heard except in that dream. You tell me if it matters. Chapter 8. What's in the cavity? I want to tell you something that's not in Priya's paper. Something she told me in the parking lot after our interview. In the way people tell you things they've decided to say when the recording is off but have changed their mind about. The organic material retrieved by Meridian's crew in July 1953. The material in the incident log was described as, quote, not consistent with standard petrochemical biological signatures. Priya found it. It took her 4 months. The chain of custody ran through the corporate acquisitions of 1971 and 1989 into a storage facility in Houston, Texas, that belongs to the current Delaware holding company. Priya's university legal team filed 3 separate requests before a judge in the Louisiana federal court ordered the material released for independent scientific analysis on the grounds of its connection to an ongoing environmental health study. The material arrived at Tulane's biology department in a sealed container in April 2024. Priya had 2 biologists, both tenured, both with clearances for unusual biological specimens, analyze it independently. They agreed on the following. The organic material was biological. It was cellular, structured, and organized. It was not petroleum-derived and not consistent with any known deep earth organism from the geological record. It was also, and both biologists used the same word, independently alive. Not vital. Not active. Not metabolizing in any normal sense. But alive in the way that certain extremophile organisms are alive in conditions that should be lethal. A dormancy that is not death. A suspended state that maintains cellular integrity across impossible timeframes. The carbon dating suggested the material was between 9 and 11,000 years old. 9 to 11,000 years old. And still alive. What is it? I asked Priya. We don't know, she said. There is no reference in any biological database. No phylogenetic match. No comparable specimen in any collection anywhere. It is genuinely, not rhetorically, something we have never seen before. Is it the thing in the dream? I asked. She looked at me for a very long time. I'm not going to answer that, she said. I'm not going to answer that, because I'm a scientist, and I don't speculate beyond my evidence. But, I said. She picked up her keys. But, she said, whatever is in that cavity, whatever has been in that cavity for 10,000 years, is still there. The cavity was sealed in 1953. It hasn't been opened since. And every October 17th, the infrasound spikes and 1,200 people in Dulac, Louisiana, hear their names spoken in a language that doesn't exist. She walked to her car. And now I know my name too, she said, without turning around. And I don't know what to do about that. She got in the car and drove away. October 17th, 2024. It is October now, as I write this. The air is cooler. The marsh grass in Terrebonne Parish is turning gold at the edges. The bayous are high from the fall rains. October 17th is 2 weeks away. Priya's paper was published in November. The Delaware Holding Company has been notified of the biological materials analysis results. Their lawyers have been quiet since April. The Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality has opened an inquiry into the 1953 Meridian bore site based on Priya's environmental health study application. Nothing will happen before October 17th. Something will happen on October 17th. It will happen the way it always happens. At some point between 11 p.m. and midnight, 1,200 people in Dulac, Louisiana will fall asleep. They will turn, in their sleep, to face the bayou. They will hear, from somewhere in the direction of the water, a sound that is like language. And at exactly 3:17 a.m., they will wake up, quietly and completely, having heard their name spoken by something that has known it for 10,000 years. Dev Tran is going back. He's going to spend the night of October 17th at his grandmother's house. Not for research, not for the study, just to be there. Why? I asked him. He thought about it. Because I heard my name, he said. And I want to hear it again. Is that strange? No, I said. I don't think it's strange at all. Priya is not going back. She has heard her name once, and she says once is enough. She has a paper to publish, data to analyze, and a career to protect. And a husband who would like her to spend October 17th in New Orleans, in their apartment, in their bed. Are you scared? I asked her. Of what? She said. Of what's in the cavity, I said. Of what it knows. Of the fact that it knows your name now. She was quiet for a moment. Here's what I know, she said. Whatever is in that cavity has been there for 10,000 years. In all that time, it has never done anything harmful. It speaks once a year. It says names. It goes quiet. The people of Dulac have been living with it for 70 years, and they are fine. They are good people. They fish, they raise families, they go to church and temple, and no church at all. The dream doesn't hurt them. But, I said. She almost smiled. But I do think, she said, about what it would mean if it ever stopped. 1 year the dream didn't happen. If something disturbed the cavity, a new drilling operation, an earthquake, something. If the voice went quiet, she paused. I think the people of Dulac would feel it. Not just the absence of the dream. Something more fundamental. The absence of something that has been known to them for 70 years. Like losing a part of yourself, I said. Like losing the part of yourself, she said, that knows your real name. Dulac, Louisiana. Terrebonne Parish. Population, 1,200. Every October 17th since 1953. Every family. Same dream. Same night. Something in the water knows their names. And this year, for the first time in 70 years, the world knows about it. If you spend the night of October 17th in Dulac, Louisiana, you will have the dream. You will stand at the edge of the water. Something will come towards you. And at 3:17 in the morning, you will hear your name. Your real name. The one you did not know you had. I don't know if that's terrifying or beautiful. I think it might be both. I think it might be the same thing. This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next week. And whatever your real name is, something out there already knows it. Sleep well. Subscribe to Red State Horror. Drop your real name in the comments, just those 3 words. If this story found you the way I think it did, you'll know why. Subscribe, share this, and tell me in the comments, would you spend October 17th in Dulac? Because I genuinely don't know what my answer is.